It was a cold morning when the boy first noticed the man sitting near the traffic signal. Cars rushed past, horns blaring, people staring straight ahead, pretending not to see him. The man sat on the pavement with his head slightly bowed, holding a small cardboard sign. His clothes were worn, his shoes torn, and his hands trembled as he lifted the sign toward passing cars. Most people ignored him. Some looked uncomfortable. A few shook their heads and drove on. The boy was on his way to school, his backpack heavy on his shoulders, his mind half focused on an upcoming exam, but something made him slow down. There was something familiar about the man's posture, the way he held himself despite his condition. The boy looked again, his heart beginning to race. He stopped walking. It couldn't be. He blinked, hoping his eyes were playing tricks on him. But the more he stared, the more certain he became. The man begging on the roadside was someone he recognized. Someone who had once stood in front of a classroom, confident and proud. Someone who had taught him lessons that went far beyond textbooks. It was his teacher. The boy's memories flooded back instantly. He remembered the man standing by the blackboard, explaining lessons patiently, staying late after school to help struggling students, encouraging them to believe in themselves. This was the same teacher who used to say that education could change lives, that dignity and hard work always mattered. And now, here he was, sitting on the ground, invisible to the world. The boy felt a knot form in his chest. He wanted to walk away like everyone else. It would have been easier, but his feet refused to move. Instead, he stepped closer. The teacher looked up slowly, his eyes tired and cautious, as if expecting rejection. For a moment, there was confusion on his face. Then recognition. Their eyes met. The teacher's face changed instantly. Shame washed over his features. He tried to lower the sign, turning his face away. He didn't want to be seen like this, especially not by a former student. His shoulders slumped, as if the weight of his situation suddenly became heavier. The boy swallowed hard. He wanted to say something, but no words came out at first. Finally, he spoke softly, calling the teacher by the respectful name he had always used in class. The teacher hesitated before responding, his voice barely above. A whisper. They stood there in silence for a few seconds, the noise of the city rushing around them. Then the boy asked the question that mattered most. What happened? The teacher didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted back to the road. Slowly, painfully, he began to explain. Years ago, his life had been stable. He had a job, a home, respect. But then things began to fall apart. Budget cuts had cost him his teaching position. Temporary work turned into unemployment. Medical bills piled up after an illness. Family support faded as resources ran dry. Pride kept him from asking for help until there was nothing left. The boy listened quietly, his fists clenched. He felt anger, sadness, and disbelief all at once. How could someone who gave so much to others be forgotten so easily? How could a system let this happen? The school bell rang in the distance, reminding the boy that he was already late. But in that moment, nothing felt more important than what was happening right in front of him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the little money he had, placing it gently in the teacher's hand. The teacher tried to refuse, but the boy insisted. Then the boy did something unexpected. He took out his phone. At first, the teacher looked alarmed. He thought the boy might be recording him to share his humiliation. Fear flashed across his face. But the boy quickly explained he wasn't recording to shame him. He wanted to tell his story. He wanted people to see the man behind the sign, the teacher who had once inspired so many lives. The teacher hesitated. Years of dignity told him to say no. But desperation, mixed with a quiet hope, made him agree. The boy recorded a short video, standing beside his teacher, speaking honestly from the heart. He explained who the man was, what he had meant to his students, and how life can change in ways no one expects. He asked a simple question at the end. If this teacher once helped shape futures, could the world help him now? The boy uploaded the video before he even reached school. At first, nothing happened. The boy went through his classes, distracted, checking his phone whenever he could. Then the notifications started. One comment turned into 10. 10 turned into hundreds. People were sharing the video, moved by the story, shocked by the reality it revealed. By the end of the day, the video had thousands of views. Strangers began asking how they could help. Former students recognized the teacher and shared their own memories. Some offered food, others offered work. A few even offered legal and medical assistance. The story spread far beyond the city, far beyond what the boy had imagined. That evening, the boy returned to the same spot. This time he wasn't alone. People were already there, talking to the teacher, offering support. The teacher looked overwhelmed, confused, and emotional. For the first time in a long while, there was a spark of hope in his eyes. But this was only the beginning, because what happened next would not only change the teacher's life forever, it would also teach the boy and millions of people watching a lesson about kindness, dignity, and the unexpected power of one small decision. He couldn't sleep that night. The image of her sitting on the cold pavement kept replaying in his mind again and again. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her hands shaking as she held the paper cup. The way she avoided eye contact, the shame she couldn't hide no matter how hard she tried. This was the same woman who used to stand confidently in front of the classroom, correcting mistakes with patience, encouraging dreams, telling them they could become anything if they worked hard enough. And now she was out there, invisible to the world. The next morning, he skipped breakfast and left early. He told his parents he had extra classes. His heart was pounding as he walked back to the same street. He didn't even know what he planned to do. He just knew he couldn't pretend he hadn't seen her. She was still there, sitting in the same spot, wrapped in a thin jacket that clearly wasn't warm enough. When he walked closer, she noticed him. At first, confusion crossed her face. Then, recognition. Her eyes widened, and immediately she tried to look away. "Ma'am," he said softly, his voice shaking. She froze. Slowly, she looked back at him. Her lips trembled as she tried to smile, but it broke halfway. You shouldn't be here," she said. "Please, go." He shook his head. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." She looked around nervously, as if afraid someone else might see them. "I didn't want anyone from school to know. This isn't who I am." "I know," he replied. "You taught me who you really are." That sentence broke something inside her. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she quickly wiped them away with her sleeve. She tried to stand up, embarrassed, but he gently gestured for her to sit. They talked. Quietly. At first she resisted, giving short answers. But slowly the story came out. After years of teaching, budget cuts had reduced her hours. Then her husband fell ill, medical bills piled up. She sold her jewelry, then her furniture. Eventually she lost her apartment. She had applied for jobs everywhere, but without a permanent address. Doors kept closing. Begging was never the plan. It was the last option. He listened in silence, his chest tight. This wasn't just bad luck. It was a system that let someone who gave her life to educating others fall through the cracks. "I don't want pity," she said firmly. "I just want a chance to stand on my own again." He nodded. "Then let me help you get that chance." She looked at him, surprised. "How? You're just a student." He pulled out his phone. "Maybe, but I know how to tell a story." That afternoon, he went home and locked himself in his room. He replayed every word she had said. He didn't want to expose her or turn her pain into entertainment. He wanted dignity, respect, hope. He recorded a short video. He didn't show her face. He didn't mention her name or the school. He simply told the truth about a teacher who shaped lives and was now struggling to survive. About how easily anyone could fall if support disappeared. About how helping wasn't charity, it was gratitude. Before posting, he hesitated. What if this backfired? What if people mocked her? What if she felt betrayed? He went back to her the next day and showed her the video before uploading it. "This is my story too," she said after watching. "If this can help even one person remember teachers are human, then do it." That night, he posted the video. At first, nothing happened. A few likes, a couple of comments. He went to bed thinking maybe this was the end. By morning, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing, thousands of views. Then tens of thousands, comments flooded in. Former students sharing similar stories, teachers opening up about their own struggles, parents expressing shock, people asking how they could help. Within hours, the video crossed 1 million views. News pages started reposting it. Influencers shared it with captions about respect and gratitude. Donations began coming in, small at first, then larger. Someone offered her a temporary place to stay. Another offered a part-time tutoring job. A retired principal reached out, saying he had a position opening. When he went back to her with the news, she couldn't believe it. "They remember me?" She whispered. "They never forgot you," he said. She cried openly this time, not from shame, but from relief. But the story didn't stop there. As the video spread, it sparked a larger conversation. People started asking hard questions. Why were educators treated this way? Why was there no safety net? Why did it take a viral video for help to arrive? Schools began responding publicly. Local officials reached out. A nonprofit organization contacted her, offering long-term support and legal help to sort out her housing situation, and through all of it, she remained humble. She insisted on thanking everyone personally. She asked him again and again if this attention would fade, if everything would go back to how it was. "I don't know," he admitted. "But even if it does, you won't be alone anymore." One afternoon, she asked him something unexpected. "Why did you really do this?" She asked. He thought for a moment. "Because when I was failing math, you stayed after class with me. You didn't give up. I figured it was my turn not to give up." She smiled through tears. What began as a chance encounter on a quiet street had turned into a movement. Not just for her, but for countless others silently struggling. People started sharing stories of helping teachers, nurses, mentors. Acts of kindness multiplied, inspired by one simple decision to care. And as the boy watched the world respond, he realized something powerful. Sometimes going viral isn't about fame. Sometimes it's about humanity finally paying attention. The moment the video of what happened next went viral, life began to change in ways no one expected. The boy woke up the next morning to thousands of notifications. His phone kept buzzing, messages from strangers, comments filled with disbelief, gratitude, and shock. People from different cities, even different countries, were sharing the clip. Many couldn't believe that the woman begging on the roadside was once a teacher who had shaped young minds. Others were moved by the boy's quiet respect, the way he knelt beside her, spoke gently, and treated her with dignity instead of pity. The teacher, overwhelmed and embarrassed at first, struggled to understand what had happened. For years, she had lived invisible, ignored by passers-by who never looked twice. Now suddenly, people were calling her name, asking about her story, wanting to help. When the boy visited her again, this time with his parents, she broke down. In tears, she kept repeating that she never taught him to do this. But the boy reminded her softly that she taught him kindness, even when life is unfair. As more details came out, the full story shocked everyone even more. After losing her job years ago due to budget cuts and then facing medical issues, the teacher had burned through her savings. With no family support and rising living costs, she slowly slipped into homelessness. Pride kept her silent. She never told former colleagues or students. She believed her life had already ended, that she was forgotten. The boy's act proved how wrong that belief was. Donations started pouring in, but the boy was careful. He insisted on transparency and respect. With help from local volunteers, they arranged proper medical checkups for the teacher, something she had avoided for years. They found her a clean, safe place to stay temporarily. For the first time in a long time, she slept on a bed instead of the cold ground. She said the silence of that night, without traffic noise or fear, felt unreal. News channels picked up the story, but the boy refused interviews at first. He said the story wasn't about him. It was about how easily society forgets the people who once gave everything to it. When he finally agreed to speak, he didn't cry or exaggerate. He spoke calmly, saying that if one teacher could end up begging, it meant something was deeply broken. His words struck a nerve. Viewers didn't just feel emotional, they felt responsible. The teacher slowly regained her confidence. She began speaking again, not to crowds at first, but to small groups of students at community centers. Her voice was shaky, but her wisdom was still sharp. She talked about resilience, about how life can change without warning, and how dignity should never be taken away from anyone. Students listened closely, some wiping tears, others holding their teachers' hands a little tighter afterward. The boys' school decided to honor the teacher formally. They invited her to stand on stage, not as someone who needed charity, but as an educator who deserved respect. When she walked into the hall, students stood up without being told. The applause lasted longer than anyone expected. She tried to speak but couldn't at first. Years of pain and silence poured out in tears. When she finally found her voice, she thanked the boy, not for the money or attention, but for seeing her as a human being when the world looked away. The viral attention eventually faded, as it always does, but the impact didn't. The teacher secured a stable teaching role at an adult learning center. It wasn't the same classroom she once had, but it gave her purpose again. The boy continued. His studies changed by the experience. He said he no longer wanted success just for himself. He wanted to notice people, especially the ones everyone else ignores. Sometimes they still meet. They don't talk about the video or the fame. They talk about books, life, and how strange the world can be. The teacher often says that the road didn't break her, being unseen did. And the boy often replies that the smallest actions can echo the loudest. This story didn't go viral because it was dramatic. It went viral because it revealed a truth many people try to avoid. That kindness doesn't need permission, that respect costs nothing, and that the people who once guided us might one day need us to remember them. And maybe the real lesson wasn't taught in a classroom at all, but on a dusty roadside, where one boy chose humanity over indifference, and in doing so reminded the world what it means to care.